What is up, you guys? It's Tam from Tam Loves Books here. Welcome back to my channel. So since today is the last day of January, I figured it was fitting that I share with you guys all the books that I read in January. So I read a total of 9 books this month. I'm so very proud of myself. I read both ebooks and physical. So the ebooks, I'll just post a picture right under me. And the physical books, I will show you. So I'm going to be looking over here because I want to do it in order. So let's get into it, y'all. So the first book I read in January, which I have to say is my absolute favorite of all the books I read this month, is The Thug and His Doll by Bia Page. So I read this on ebook. Hendrix is the ultimate book bae. I absolutely adored him. Like, it's the first book I read. Now, it's not the first book I read where there's thugs, but it was the first book I read where the thug falls extremely fast, right? And he's the thug of all thugs to me. Like, but anyway, so this book follows Leah and Hendrix, and he ultimately falls like for Leah and wants to protect Leah and her son Toby from her abusive husband that she's running away from. So that's the first book. The second book I read was the second book in the actual series. There's a Princetown series. So that was the first book. The second book I read was The Rogue and His Flower. The Rogue and His Flower. That's also by Bia Page. I love this book too. All these books I gave 5 stars to because honestly, I could find nothing wrong with them. So I absolutely love that book. The third book I read was The Cock Down the Block. This is by Amy Award. So I read this book. It's the first book that I actually immersely read. So I read the book, the ebook, and I also listened to the audiobook. And that is an experience. If you have not done that, you definitely need to do it. I honestly wish I could read all my books this way because I really would. I enjoy this book because, for one, the main female character is a curvy girl. As a curvy girl myself, it's always a plus when the main female character is a curvy girl and she gets her happy ending. Plus, it's my favorite trope, which is friends to lovers. If you love friends to lovers trope, go ahead and drop your favorite friends to lovers trope in the comments below. So the fourth book I read was The Sea Agreement. So The Sea Agreement, that book is by R.L. Kensington, I believe. This book follows another curvy girl. And I absolutely adored this book. If you have not read any of these books, I will, like I said, put a picture for the ebooks and show you the physical books that I read. So the fifth book I read this month was The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. I know y'all have probably heard of this book. This book was everything because, for one, my fiance was totally invested. When I was telling him about this book, he was like, who did it? Who did it? So this is a thriller, right? This book follows Adam and Sarah Morgan. They're married. Sarah is a defense attorney, and unfortunately, her husband Adam is having an affair, and unfortunately, they find his mistress unalived in their lake house, and so she actually has to defend him. He's charged for murder, so she has to defend him, y'all. This book has a plot twist that I was not ready for. So if you have not picked this up, you should. And I'm so ready for The Perfect Divorce that comes out in April. It's definitely on my Amazon wish list. Oh, and plug, if you ever want to get me something from my Amazon wish list, it will always be linked in the description box below. Surprise me. I love all surprises, okay? The next book I read is called Second Chance by Nadia Neil. I love this book. It's definitely got that. All these books, except for The Perfect Marriage, pretty much has spice in it. Um, the spice in Second Chance, if you're into Doms and praise, but also some um, dirt, all the dirty talk, all the things, then you'll definitely want to get this book. This book follows Connor and I think her name was Lita, something like that. You'll have to excuse me. But they fell in love in high school. He was a hockey player. But by the time he went off to college, they separated. And 10 years later, they find each other again. He's a substitute coach for her son's hockey team. And after he sees her again, he also sees her um, sex bucket that she's never really been open sexually before, and so he helps her to open herself more. So it's all that, y'all. So the next book I read is the infamous Icebreaker. Y'all, I heard so many good things about this book, and it was well worth it, like by Hannah Grace. I absolutely adored this book. I absolutely adored Anastasia, Nathan. Like, it was so cute, like how he fell for her, and how she was giving him, like, not letting it be easy, you know what I'm saying, for her to want to be with him and stuff, because she was the non-committal person, and like, it was just so cute. So if you haven't read this book, you should. um the next book I read is Past the Rush by Britt Stark. So I actually just read this finished it not too long ago. This book follows Conrad and Lena. Conrad and Lena were Conrad is Lena's brother's best friend. And this book, I love this book because one of the content warnings is grief, loss of a sibling, loss of a best friend. And as a person who has experienced grief, like, Britt Stark wrote this extremely well to me, like the grief and the feelings and everything. So they were pretty much crushing on each other in high school, right? But Lena's brother passed away in an accident that they were all in, and then I want to say like 15 years later, they meet again because she's the social media manager for his team that he's traded to. So he plays football, and he's traded to a team, and she's a social media manager. So they technically are working together. And he's always been in love with her. She's always been in love with him. So he basically, wines and dines her, kind of wears her down. And it don't take much because she was still feeling him. He was still feeling her. So if you haven't picked up this book, definitely get it. It's definitely a second book, which I'm reading now. How many of y'all read 3 or 4 books at a time? I read so many at a time. It's ridiculous. So the last book that I read this month was Praise by Sarah Kate. So y'all, I started this book like way in December, but I still count it as my January read because I finished it in January. So like, if you're into the spice, into the dom sub trope, like, this book is great. And also, if you're into age gap, this is the first age gap book that I actually read, and I'm not complaining at all. Like, if Emerson is as good looking as the book describes, hey, I ain't mad. I ain't mad at all. Charlotte, do your thing. So this follows Emerson and Charlotte. Charlotte is the ex-girlfriend of Emerson's son. She comes to his house because she has to pick up a security deposit check. He thinks that she is one of his subs. So he literally makes her get on her knees, the whole thing. And she does it without telling him, like, hey, I'm not that. And she comes to realize that may be one of her kinky desires that she's never let out before. So he helps her not only to bring out her desires, but he also helps her with her self-worth, her self-confidence, like the whole thing. So I really, really did love this book. So any of these books, if you have read them, comment below what you thought of them. I will be doing a video hopefully soon on my February hopefuls, but definitely like, comment, subscribe, all the things, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.